All right, welcome everyone. Hello, this is the COVID fundraiser stream. We're a bunch of IIT graduates who are currently in the US. We've pursued master's or PhD programs. So today the objective is basically to help you with any of your career related questions if you are also considering the same. Feel free to use the chat option on YouTube so that we can basically read your questions and then answer them accordingly. We have a very interesting panel with us, and then a very structured format of how we want to lead into the discussions. So again, feel free to use the chat option as much as you can. If you're unable to use the chat, we have the WhatsApp group down in the description. Go there and join into the group, and you can ask your questions from there as well. We have 26 people already watching with us, so thank you so much for joining. If you can quickly in the chat tell us where you're joining us from. I mean, I'll start. I'm from Chicago, but let's see where people are joining us from.
Do we have an order to this?
Sorry, say that again.
Do we have an order to this?
Okay, let me go ahead, right? So hi, I'm Saurabh from 2017 batch, IIT Bombay. I came to US right after my BTech, and I did my master's in transportation engineering and another master's in statistics. And right now I'm working as a data scientist in Chicago. What's up? You want to go next?
Sure. So I am an IIT Bombay graduate, the 2016 batch. I did a master's there, and from now I'm pursuing my MBA at University of Michigan Ross School of Management. And yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, my name is Vishwas. I'm also a 2016 graduate, IIT Bombay, and currently I'm pursuing a PhD in material science, specifically batteries, and I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Hey, I'm Harsh Bohra. I graduated in 2018. I pursued my master's directly after my BTech from IIT Bombay. I did a thesis-based master's, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Okay, finally, yeah. Great. No, thank you so much, obviously, for every one of you who joined us. I think the basic structure or the overarching theme of this session is, as I said, to give sort of a perspective or sharing our individual experiences. Me personally, I went to Georgia Tech for pursuing my master's right after my graduation from IIT Bombay, which was in 2017. My background was in civil engineering. I moved into a little bit of the construction management, real estate finance program to pursue more of the business side of the built environment. And now I'm working on real estate investments as part of my career pursuit. But we all have a very varied sort of a group for you today. So feel free to shoot your shot, ask those questions, and I mean, don't hesitate to. I mean, there are no right or wrong questions. There are no right or wrong answers. The intent for our panel as well is to share as much as we can from our own individual experiences, so that it helps build your context around how to take those decisions, or what we did in order to take those decisions on our end. I think the first question, or at least the first part of the objective that we would want to get on to, is like, why do we even want to do higher education? Why masters? Why PhD?
Actually, before starting, right, let me just add something here.
Yeah, sure.
Like we have been here for like 3 years now, right? Most of us, or maybe more than that, and we have met so many people who have shared the same concerns or same like lack of misinformation that I had when I was coming here, right? There were so many things that I wish like I knew when I was applying, right? So that I could have known what universities to choose, where to go, and whatnot, right? And the whole motivation to do this is to just get our voices out there, right? Rather than rather than them being just confined among us. So the people on this stream, the 28 something people on this stream, are one of those people who are highly intellectual, who have, gone through a very, gone through a variety of phases. And I believe everyone would have a very different perspective. And that being said, now let's jump into the questions, and hopefully people, would engage, and or everyone would benefit from this. Yeah.
I mean, I'll shoot this question to Vishwas first, because I know a little bit of your background, but after graduation you went into consulting, but then now it's like a complete, you took a left to a completely different field
Yeah.
now. So I mean, I'm just, from your story, from your perspective, what was in your mind while graduating? How did it change over time? And now in the current situation you're in, what was those decisions you had to take in order to get up to here?
Sure. So happy to share that, and thanks for asking it. So just to provide a bit more background. So I graduated 2016, and then I started working with a management consulting firm. I worked there for a year, and during that time I learned a lot of things, but I found that consulting is not my cup of tea. I couldn't visualize myself in consulting for next, after say 5 years down the line. I was like, okay, what else can I do if not consulting? And that's when it started, I started thinking a lot about it. It was not a straight decision that I want to go to higher studies and I want to do PhD, blah, blah, blah. There were a bunch of steps involved. I met with a lot of people, including professors from IIT, but I met with a lot of people like from finance, from different industries, like from consulting itself, finance, some people who have gone for other competitive exams as well, because frankly speaking, after IIT I was kind of lost. I didn't know why consulting, why I selected consulting, except for it was cool to do at that time, right out of IIT, the batch. It's day one job, consulting, everyone wants that. I guess that was the biggest motivation that I had to get into consulting, but there was no big internal motivation to get into consulting except for that. So I had to sort of rediscover myself. Why? What do I want to do? And that journey took me ultimately. I decided that I'm good at technical stuff. I like pursuing engineering challenges. Sorry, and that's what I did. I quit my job, took a huge pay cut, came back to IIT, started working as a research assistant, as a as a research scientist there, and I've never regretted that option ever. That choice. After that, it was so much fun. Worked on really cool projects. Ended up getting great opportunities there. Won bunch of competitions, and after that, I decided for my PhD. So I'm here. It has been 3 years now.
Great. I mean, I'd say on the other side of the aisle, we have actually both of the Harshes, Harsh Patel and Harsh Bhora, who right after our graduation from IIT Bombay, you moved into sort of your core field, quote unquote, per se, right? So how would you say your decision-making process was different from somebody like Vishwas, on at least on his side of the table? Any of the Harsh can take this.
I'll go ahead. So since other Harsh mic is mute. So I think my decision-making process was pretty straightforward. I had applied for jobs through placements. I had a job in hand. At the same time, I applied for masters. I wasn't sure if I get admission. The biggest concern for me actually was funding. If you have funding in masters, it's pretty easy to make a decision that you're going to go ahead and pursue masters. If you don't have funding, that's when you have to think about and compare the pros and cons. Luckily, I was able to get funding, and it was a pretty straightforward decision for me to make. Pursuing masters is actually, one of the main reasons to pursue masters is to increase your knowledge base. I think we get to learn very little when we're doing bachelors, especially in my core field of engineering. We just get exposed to a lot of things, but not in depth, and that's when doing masters come very handy. So that's been my take why I did masters.
Yeah, so piggybacking on the same thing, I work First of all, a short bio about myself. I work as a civil engineer in pavement design and analysis for a consultancy firm. So we basically have clients all over USA, uh, the airports all over USA, and we help them in the pavement design, in the forensic analysis if the pavement has deteriorated, and all of that, like right from testing to the report thing. And so as Harsh said, that the bachelor's is just a start. It's like you barely scratch the surface of the specialize you want to work, the specialty you want to work in. Like he works in structural, I work in payment. So you go into you start knowing about the specialty about the field in your masters. So I chose payment because of the projects I did in my bachelor's, and then I chose Purdue MS because it has a very good reputation in pavement design and engineering, and of course funding was also good in Purdue, so that helped me take the decision. And after that I chose to do job because in my field you can be the job is also a good way to get the required knowledge to get further in this field and eventually go to the PE and everything else. And also switching into PhD if someone wants to is also not a tough thing to do, because the right now the thing you do, it helps to build a PhD profile too. So yeah, that's why I chose to do job right now, and here I am working in Virginia.
So let me just ask one more question, right? So Harsh Bora mentioned that he already had secured a job through placement, right? But I know you, Harsh, right, Patel? Uh, did you have like a second option? Let's say if you did not get, the masters that you would have liked, or maybe you didn't have enough funding. Like, did you have a plan, for that?
Yes, yes, Saurabh. I had a contingency plan of working as an RA in under my professor, and I had talked with him beforehand that if this thing doesn't work out this year, then next year for sure, with the help of the research experience I will be getting the year of RA, it will help me to get the required, like the necessary funding the next year.
So
So
RA is just a
RA was the
research research assistant is
research,
RA.
research assistantship. Yeah, under the under the professor, you get a stipend for the project you are working on.
Right. So
Yeah,
just
but
a shout, sorry, just a shout out to Dharamveer sir. We both are from
Yeah.
we both came from his group, and now we are here. So yeah. Go ahead, Vishwas.
yeah, just to add there, I mean, it's good to have a contingency plan, but something if you really believe in, should work. You should not wait for a contingency plan to be there. I mean, when I quit my job, I did not have my RA-ship. I did not have any promises of any such thing. I did not know if I want to go for higher studies at that time. But I knew that I had to get out of consulting if I want to break that circle and, explore something new and build my career in something which I want. So sometimes you have to take those tough calls. But it's good. It's always good to have a security net. Won't deny that.
Right. No, make sense. Actually, just a little bit here, right? So I went through the same thing. I think that Vishwas you mentioned. So when I was graduating, right, I had no motivation to work anywhere because I didn't know what I want to do, right? And literally, I was like, I had an okay profile, right? I did research for an year. I did my thesis, and I was like, I think the most suitable thing for me to do is just to, get out. Let's explore, right? The world is so big. Let's just go out there. And I did not have any plan contingency plan, right? I just went for it. Luckily, I got a good master's, and I went ahead. But that was the only motivation I had to come here and do my master's. And so all I'm trying to convey here is that you don't need to have a plan, right, before going to masters. It's a very, everyone might have their own unique cases, right? You might be very clear, or you might not be. So like there is no right or wrong to this. Mhm.
Okay. No, I mean, I think there's no right or wrong answer, and I agree with all perspectives. Similar situation as most of the people here as well. Uh, which was, I also didn't have any sort of like funding or anything secured when I moved here. But yeah, I knew I sat for placements as well. I had a job in hand, but at the same time I was applying. So I was the most confused person from the inside, even from the outside. If everybody else felt that, yeah, Tushar has everything figured out, but I had not. And that is the case with everyone, guys. No one has it figured out. We are all trying to learn as we go along. We're all trying to sort of inch by inch move in a direction, or at least explore and then move back, right? Like Vishwas went into consulting, but then realized, okay, this is absolutely not what he wants to do, and he took a sharp left. So Utsav, I know you actually have a pretty interesting background from that perspective. Guys, Utsav is the MBA on the panel, so I know we received a bunch of MBA questions. So Utsav, we'll have some questions directed towards you, but at least on the context of the decision-making process or your journey, can you throw some light on top of that?
Yeah, so the decisions that I was trying to make at the time were kind of different from what you all had to make, because I was already working and I had been like I was into investment banking and I was there for around 4 years. And that is something that, so I'd say one thing, that when you're graduating, there's so little you know about how it actually happens on the professional front. There's so many things that you don't know about. You know it from an academic perspective, sure, but you don't really know like how the world works and what comes together to build new things. So that was something that I kind of learned on the job. And after 4 years, and unlike Vishwas, for example, like who found uh, his job like completely insufferable, for me it was it's not a similar case. I enjoyed being an investment banker and everything was going hunky-dory, but after there comes a point where you realize, for example, as an investment banker, my job was particularly to raise money for different kinds of companies. And when I kind of learned more about the trade, I realized the money trail over there always hinted back to the US. So it was some big US fund funding a smaller fund in India, and that was in turn funding some companies in India. And when you look at those trails, for me personally, I just wanted to be that much closer to the source. So that was something that kind of uh, fueled my desire to like get an MBA from the US, to you know see what's so special here, and why is it that money, this is this kind of focus point for all the money that's being circulated around the world. The investment industry is kind of centered around the ecosystem that's been built here. So that was something that I realized, having worked in that industry for a while, and having realized that there are certain things that are probably not possible if you stay back in India, like not possible to learn or not possible to understand. In terms of, so I guess those who are trying to do an MBA, the biggest decision becomes to whether or not it's a good idea to leave, because on one front you're already earning a decent amount of money and you're getting that salary SMS every month. So it's kind of hard to say no to that and decide to become a student again. But at the same time, I guess it because you need to have a purpose. For example, I mean, I'm sure that everybody will have a different purpose. For example, I just explained my purpose, but this is something that you'll realize when you're in the job, you're in there for a while, and you're learning what's happening and what's clicking and what's not clicking. And that is something that I think helps you make that decision. And of course, other factors go into it as well. For example, there was the other big thing that kind of, although it was not the first thing that I thought about, but I also realized that with COVID coming along, uh, the job prospects in India wasn't really looking very bleak in terms of promotions, in terms of bonuses. So I was like, yeah, this is probably the best time for me to dive back into academy and like come back, come out of the other side as with a new degree and with new prospects.
Great. I think we bashed consulting as a job option using Vishwas's example again and again. Guys, this is not like that particular career is good or bad. It's
Yeah,
just a
exactly.
personal thing.
I want to add that it's just
Sorry,
what
Roland
works.
Berger.
Right. And by the way, it's burger. I mean,
Burger.
I had a hard time
Sorry.
saying that. So any which ways. But the idea is that, you know, you need to figure out what's good for you. There are great management consultants out there who are doing really good work. And there are some bad ones who are, you know, doing some crazy shit. But any which ways. The idea is that, you know, what works for you, you need to define it for yourself. No one else is gonna. But I guess we all come from similar tradition wherein our seniors sort of shape where we go, right, in IIT. And that common mass mentality is that you need to secure something which is perceived as sexy or glamorous by the cohort. And consulting is one such thing. Investment banking is another such thing. Although we all are engineers, but still that's how the Indian economy works or IIT system works. Any which ways, yeah. So consulting is not bad. That's not the message that you know that we wanted to send out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, it's a personal thing, guys. So one quick thing, guys, please like the stream so that we are able to reach out to more people via the YouTube algorithm. And please feel free to share this stream link to as many people as you can. We're our panel is growing. We have a lot more interesting questions ahead, a lot more perspectives. I'm starting to see a few questions in the chat. We'll start picking them up one by one, or even on a holistic level, start covering the topics around as simple as application processes to job prospects, or again, individual experiences that we all had to go through. Okay, we have a couple of new additions, Vinayak and Divyendu. Hey guys, just like we have chat like changed our name, or at least like trying to show you that, hey, this is where we pursued our masters or pursuing our masters or PhD and our field. If you can also text in the chat sort of what are you currently doing and what field are you pursuing, we want to know you better so that we can tailor our answers or tailor our responses in general, understanding you know, more about you guys. So if you can start doing that in the chat. In the meanwhile, we'll go to Dibyendu. What's up, man? He's I think joining us from Miami. The context around, I think you joined in the middle of the conversation. The context around our discussion was basically, why did we even pursue higher education? Like, what was your decision-making process while graduating from computer science degree at IIT Bombay? Why did you want to come to the US?
Hey, hi. Yeah, so in my case, like I was, especially in my case, I was really interested in research in computer science, and I was more focused in computer graphics. So I wanted to explore like deeper into the field and like figure out what all is going on, what people are doing, what people are working on, what are the new cool things. And I wanted to go more into research. So I decided that like starting a job right away is probably not the best way for me. And yeah, that's why I chose that. Yeah, I should go for masters, specifically in computer graphics. And yeah, that's why it started. I did listen to some of you, and yeah, I also had like a backup option. Sort of. I didn't really go through placements like in a normal way. I like went into the one of the later days when pretty much everyone was placed, and I remember there was Samsung Noida, I think, and I just sat for there, didn't really go for prepared or anything. No formals, nothing. I just went in with the jacket with one resume, and yeah, I said, okay, I kind of interested, and let's see what happens. And yeah, I got selected. So it was kind
That's
of
a
a random
power
thing.
move, man. That's a power move.
It was a really risky move. But yeah, I wasn't
Not
interested.
recommended.
Not recommended.
Guys,
as
don't do
well.
that.
But yeah, I was not interested in doing a job at that time. I wanted to go more into research and figure out again more into my area. So that's what I did. I luckily I got selected again in Georgia Tech, same as Tushar. And yeah, I did my master's in computer graphics, and right now I'm working at Striker, it's a company in South Florida, and it's a research company. So I'm doing research again in computer graphics. So yeah, kind of following my passion, you can say.
That's great. Vinayak, I think, as soon as he joined in, the Zoom sort of room pledged its allegiance to the real host. Thank you for joining. Vinayak is a PhD at MIT, so obviously, if you guys have questions specific to university selection, we'll get to that very soon. Again, I think interesting journey for you as well, Vinayak, and I think it's also a mix of fields that you've combined from what academically and from your passion. So I think you're best to describe yourself. What was your decision making process?
Thanks, Tushar. So, like for me, it was more about like some long-term decisions than about like taking extra time for say concrete decision making, because like I was in the dual degree program. So one of the good things about the program was that like I had an extra year already. Like I could see my friends getting placed, my friends going for an MS, and seeing like how their experiences are after say some months, before I could make the decision whether I want to do a job or I want to do an MS or a PhD for that matter. uh, I was always interested in music, and I kept on pursuing music very seriously even during my undergrad. So I knew one thing, that I want to do something where my music does not stop, because I know people have talked about consulting a lot, but I would like just quote a line that my A.T. Kearney mentor told me, and he said, if you uh, continue with music, you cannot start with A.T. Kearney, and if you start with A.T. Kearney, you have to leave your music. So like he clearly said that this would not work here. So like then I was almost sure that I don't want to go like the non-core route, at least for now. That was somewhat of a bias that I developed, but um, like I knew I was interested in science in general, in sounds. I had some research experience under my belt, so like I applied for PhD programs, and like once I applied, like it was more about applying for a PhD in two different fields. One was music perception, music technology. The other was mechanical engineering as a backup. What ended up happening was that like I got into MIT in a mechanical engineering PhD program, which I had obviously not imagined earlier. I had just applied because it was supposed to be like a temple where you have to first offer your prasad before applying to other places. So I was like, let me just put these $100 as good omen, and then I'll apply to other places. So like it has been a good experience, but I would say that my life experiences mm, took me to this path, but I never knew beforehand what a PhD really would ask for. Even though my parents, both of them are PhDs, my brother is a PhD, like, but still I would say, unless I spent 2 years in a PhD, nobody could have told me what a PhD really is, and I would have always told them, probably you're misleading me, or probably this doesn't happen to everyone, just like a teenager would like to their parents. I feel before doing my PhD or even applying for it, I was in a similar space. So yeah, right now I am working on auditory perception, on the perception of music, development of physical models to model acoustic processes around us, so that we can study further auditory perception. So this is what I've been doing. I can go on and on about why, like as a mechanical engineer now, I am in auditory perception and like what this field is, but probably that should be left for like any questions that I may get later.
Okay, great. Saurabh, I'll hand it over to you because I mean, you're sort of pivoting along, and I think you briefly mentioned now working in data science as well. But there's this general theme of questions that we received around, do we need some sort of experience, before even thinking to apply? Do we need to do something, or how do we start even, building our profile? So at least from getting some experience, because I think our panel is split between people who pursued masters or PhD programs right after their undergrad, and then a few who had worked and then moved along. I'll hand it to you, Saurabh, from your perspective, or at least to lead the discussion. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So about creating the profile, right? So this is one thing that I believe in. Now this could be very, I don't know, maybe not practical for a lot of people, but I have, given my time in learning, things, and no matter what, like they have came back to help me when I needed them the most. And I think that way, like I was sort of adding to my profile, right? Without even, knowing that I'm actually doing it. So yeah, so I came here to do my master's in transportation engineering, having a civil engineering background, right? But I knew like the machine learning is something, that I had done my thesis on, and I wanted to get ahead in the, game to be in that full time. So I started doing my, bunch of courses in statistics program at UC Davis. And suddenly I had so many courses that my professor suggested me to just get another master's. So I gave a couple of more quarters, and I got that. So I think for me, a lot of things were on fly. I was figuring out things on the way. But yeah, I mean, a short answer to how to build your profile is to just work consistently on something, and make sure whatever you're doing, you are making it, you are documenting it somewhere, so that you can account for it whenever you are applying for a job, or even you are applying for a master's, right? So just converting your day-to-day work into something tangible that you can show on your resume, because ultimately, even when you apply for your masters, or when you apply for a job, like how you represent yourself on paper, right? Your resume, it does play a lot, right? So yeah, that's what I'll say regarding building the profile.
Anybody else who has thoughts on this? I mean, I've received multiple questions of like, how do I even decide, or when do I decide to leave my job? Even if like, Vishwas, I'm pointing fingers at you again, but like if they don't even hate their job, but they still are completely.
Again, I want to clarify, I didn't hate my job, but I couldn't see myself 5 years down the line in the same job. So let's go away from that narrative, right? That I hated my job. It's nothing like that.
Yeah, no,
but anyway,
agreed.
It's a good question. I mean, there are a bunch of steps involved, when you have to make this decision when to leave your job. So for me, it was, I didn't have anything. I didn't have my GREs, TOEFL, any of those things. And then I did not have, time to prepare. So I had to, and then I did not have my university selected, program selected, none of that sort, right, for application. And even before taking this decision to go for higher studies, I was looking for other fields for job. Like, could I work for other, in any other industry for that matter. So this entire process, I started sometime in January when I was, working simultaneously. And then I started looking at other jobs, some technical jobs. And that's where I realized that I need to have, higher, bit more training in the field. So higher studies was the only option in which I was going to crack those jobs that I was looking at. And okay, so I have decided I want to pursue higher studies, but MS, PhD, not yet decided. I already have had a master's from IIT. And after that, so I had to decide now if either which way is MS or PhD. That decision I need to take at in October when I'm actually applying. But before that, I need to get my GRE, TOEFL, these things done. So for all that, I I guess I planned that I would need 2 months of preparation for GRE, and so that's why I quit my job sometime in May or July. I don't exactly recall, but I guess sometime in July, so that I had August to prepare. So early July is when I quit. So I had July and August to prepare, and in September I gave my GRE, and after that I worked towards building my SOP, drafting that, getting people's feedback on it, and after that I guess I applied. It was sometime in October, towards the end of October, when I decided for a PhD, as I had already been working for like 3 months as an RA at that time, 3 or 4 months. And why I took that decision, MS versus PhD, we can discuss it bit more detail if someone has that question. But I decided for PhD, and then I started applying, and by December mid I had applied everywhere, wherever necessary.
One interesting question that I've received, and I just posted on the chat for the panelists to read as well. It's a bit long, but I think the crux of the story is a lot of the people have a plan, like, you know what, let's graduate, go to the US, pursue master's or PhD, work there for a few years, and then come back and sort of like take the entrepreneurship route. Was that something did you have like in consideration that this is what we are trying to also do? And on the other side, like if that is the route, like you want to eventually end up being in either a tech or research driven entrepreneurship in India, why wouldn't you just stay and continue doing that? That was like one of the perspectives somebody wanted to get on from this panel. Open for anyone to take.
So I know a person who did their PhD from the US, was a really, really good researcher, went back. I think all of us know at least one such person, because they usually become professors at IITs or open their own companies once they're back. There are a lot of people who go back to India, like as is mentioned here in this question. Like, I know like what people have experienced in terms of research, like the difference when they did their research in the US versus when they had to go back, and like sometimes they had to drown in like a lot of bureaucracy for getting like a small equipment, and they realized, well, it's just not possible because of uh, the situation, the current situation, where like research in the US versus research in India, the only difference I see is money, and like all the other differences just follow. I guess with entrepreneurship, I might not be the best person to comment, but like the professor I'm talking about, he started a company, and he started like a really, really good company. If you know about it, the name of the company, like I'm forgetting it, but he's Professor Shashikant Suryanarayanan, and
he started a company, I guess Sedemac,
Sedemac, exactly,
for startup pins, two-wheelers.
and
Yep.
and the concept is like I talked to him over a drink about this company, and like that's when like he was at his like candid best. He said, the reason I have this company is because I came here, I had a job, like a really high paying job in the US, but I came here, I wanted to make a change, and then I went to the district councillor, like telling them, oh, this is what you should do with the city, this is what you should not do, and like he was threatened that please don't come back here again. So he was like, okay, this is not a way I can create change in India. Okay, so he started teaching like really nice, like he started new courses for everyone in the institute. So he started data analysis and interpretation, which I think now is one of the most important undergrad courses at IIT, because like at the end of the day, whichever field you are in, like you will deal with data analysis in some form or the other. So he started with that, but but the students weren't interested. So now what to do? So he was like, there are so many problems in India, like engineering problems, which are very easily solvable. Like you just apply not even a PID controller, like you just apply like a PD controller, and things just work so much better. So he realized one need not think of like state of the art solutions to really difficult problems to start a company. What one can do is look for an issue that you don't want existing, and you can think of a easy solution of, and like you can sell that easy solution. If it works, it's good. So like he made controllers like for so I think he started with fuel injection controllers for two-wheelers, and like he looked at the scalability, and the scalability was high. So now like almost every two-wheeler in India like uses that controller, and like that startup is really big.
Yeah,
So as
just
an
to add to
academic,
that, his company clocked, I guess, around 500 crores in revenue 2 years back, and it's still growing. It's based out of Pune. I also had a great discussion about coming back and then setting up something with Professor Shashikant. And it's always been like really. So yeah, there exists a lot of such examples. One such example is what Vinayak shared about there are a lot of opportunities when you come back. It's just a matter of figuring them out for yourself.
All right, great to know. I mean, if Vinayak, you can either share the link in the chat for our audience to also look into like one such example. And thank you to Vishnu who asked this question. I mean, I really felt that this is an interesting take or interesting. I mean, this is a debate in itself, right? Okay, moving along. So we're on profile building. Everybody had to go through this process. We had to, in some point in time, sort of start being a little too serious to actually, go ahead and take those mini decisions to start collecting the data points in order to aggregate a proper profile. How was that process like? Like, how do you start even building a profile? Okay, now I think I need to pursue higher education. I've made that mental note. Now, what's like step number 2? What do I need to do in order to be more presentable for an MS or a PhD application? We'll start with Vishwas again.
Okay. So in terms of profile, it depends what, MS, I won't comment on MS because I didn't apply. There are a lot of people on the panel.
Okay,
who can,
yeah, you take PhD and then we can answer MS. I mean, I think we have a bunch of
yeah,
MS
so I can comment about PhD. So PhD is a bit more, competitive because most of PhDs, they come with funding, either in terms of, a teaching funding or a research funding. You have either of them depending on which university you are applying to. So that's why they need to have, you need to show a bit of these characteristics, either some example of independent research. So that can be you did some research of your own, maybe as in your master's, that could be your master thesis, or you have published something, or you have made some presentation, poster presentation, or oral presentation at one of the conferences. So those are some basic things that it's good to have. It's not necessary, like if you are directly coming out of your BTech and you don't have your bachelor's and you don't have any of these things, but you still want to pursue a PhD, you need to convince the panel who is selecting, or the committee who is selecting you need to convince them. So if you don't have the research background, then you need to have something in your SOP that can convince them, right? Why would you be a good candidate, or why can you do independent research? Would you do good in this program? What's your motivation of applying? If you haven't explored research at all, why do you want to pursue a PhD? So those are the things that so research experience is one, good to have. Good grades always take you a lot further in the application process, because they can even though they don't explicitly come in, it's just that during the initial screenings, when they have so many applications to go through, what do? They use GRE scores, they use your CPI to sort of first filter out and then have the first bucket from which they'll be actually, reading your documents that you have sent along. So good grades, they always help you. They always help with professors. Professors do care about grades a lot. So when they are making a choice of, which candidate to choose, the grades are there. Not saying that that's the absolute necessary, but it's always, it always enhances your chances. And then third thing, I guess, have good recommendation letters from your professors who taught you. So, and it's need not be necessary professors. It could be if you are working, you can also give a recommendation, get a recommendation letter from your manager, say. It shows, that you are professional in work, because PhD, let me tell you, it's not exactly a grad school, like, a typical student life. It's like somewhere between a completely working professional and student life. You have a good chunk of your, program working as a professional, because you are building some solution, some theory or whatever, and you are actually working as a professional researcher. You are getting paid for your research, right? So if you have a good recommendation letter from, say, a manager, that shows that you have that, that those professional skills in you. So those are the three key things I would say that you need to have in your profile once you and after that you can start applying.
So just adding one thing
Sure.
here, right, real quick. So recommendation, I think, are one of the most underrated things that in my opinion, students don't give as much time to think about them, right, and to prepare, who to get and ask for recommendations. But I mean, just think about it, right? So your professor is working in the same field as probably you want to pursue your master's in, or your PhD in. Now, it's highly likely, right, that a good professor would be known around the globe. And if he writes a recommendation for you, right, it could be a game changer, for your career, right? So I think if you know that you want to pursue masters or a PhD, or even if you have a an idea that this could be your route, then take at least like start thinking about recommendations, as early as you can, because planning for it accordingly could really help you in your application process. I think Harsh Patel is one of the examples where he got, direct replies from a couple of props. I think one from UT Austin and I think from Purdue as well, where they knew his advisor, and he, he could actually answer that better himself.
Sure.
Yeah, Harsh, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt. I mean, we'll get on the MS bandwagon in a second. I just had one direct question, more so from a PhD perspective. Vishwas, maybe you
Yeah.
can answer this. Somebody in the chat, Priyanka, mentioned she's a 2016 graduate in electronics and working in applied statistics for 4 or 5 years now. And she wants to apply for PhD in statistics. Can she highlight her work projects, or should she go down the publishing paper route in order to build her profile?
Most definitely. I mean, if you belong to the same, field, that furthers your chances of getting admission somewhere, because people, if you are familiar with the field, if you have done work in the field, even if you have not published anything, but you are, the fundamentals, you have worked on them, it always gives you a better chance at cracking that position or working with that professor, because then they know they don't have to train you, or you don't have to spend time initial like 1 year or something to get trained in that particular field. So it's always good to have that experience, and you should highlight what exactly on your CV. You should highlight what exactly did you do in those projects. That's always good to have.
Yeah, great. Priyanka, I think you got the answer. You can definitely, and you should definitely highlight your work. I mean, I think even better because it is directly related. I mean, you're already working in applied statistics, so this is definitely going to be a value add. People in the chat, please like the stream, share it along. We need, more and more questions. We have a super interesting panel. Also, I think the entire intent of hosting this stream for everyone giving their time here is basically to raise as much money as we can. We have all of the links down in the description. Pick any of, whatever charity, whatever name suits you, right? Whatever location based or any preference it can be, but please, if you can, please donate. We are trying to basically encourage as much donations as we can by answering your questions in any way possible. So please go ahead and do that. All of the links are down there in the description. Okay, Harsh, sorry, I think Harsh is has the video off now, but I wanted to move along on the MS part of the story. I mean, we are a bunch of people here who did the same thing. I'll start with Divyendu first. How was sort of your journey or your setup to build your profile in order to apply for masters in at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, sure. So in my case, again, as Vishwas mentioned, so building a research profile is really, really important. So in my case, I had I had a research paper. I had participated in some research conferences, had some research like demos and talks. So those definitely help if you are able to do some publications. But apart from that, like basic R&D projects, your BTech project, or if you're doing MTech MTPs, so those definitely help a lot. So do try to do R&D projects, participate in seminars. These help a lot. Like even if you think that even if you say that like seminars might take some time, you might not be interested. But do try to explore, like in your field, whatever field you are pursuing in your career, to try to explore more, participate in those seminars, talk to different researchers who are like presenting, and like try to build your connection basically. And also another point that was mentioned was recommendations. So do try to talk to your professors beforehand. Try to talk to people, professors who you have personally worked with and who know you. Like don't it's not that great of a recommendation if you just try to get a recommendation from a professor who just taught you, like who might not know you that well. You were just one of the 100 people who were in his class, so that might not be that good of a recommendation. So try to focus more on people who personally know you. Even if in some cases it might be possible that that professor is not exactly from your field that you are actually pursuing. So in my case, I took a recommendation letter from a professor in natural language processing, even though I was applying in computer graphics, and that helped me a lot because that professor was really famous and he had lots of connections. So like other professors, even though they were in different areas, they still knew him, and that helped me a lot. So do try to make connections, and yep, keep a good relationship with the professor, and that will help you, like even during the application and after the application, it will help you throughout your life, I'll say. Other than that, what else we have the scores. Yes, the GRE TOEFL scores, those are as Vishwas mentioned, again, those are mainly used for screening processes. Like the initial filtering, they don't matter too much in the later process. They just, the initial filtering process, they matter. So yes, do prepare for them, but I'll say focus more on your CV or your SOP and then your recommendation. So try to mention all your projects, try to focus projects that in your area plus other area. Like if you are trying to explore more in other research in other areas, then yes, do mention them as well. In my case, I had done research in natural language processing as well as a bit in computer graphics. So yes, my whole profile was not just computer graphics based, even though I applied for computer graphics. So doing research helps, mentioning your research helps, even though even though they are not of the same area, they still help a lot, because what professors look during the application process is that can you do research, and are you able to like get through all the difficulties that people face during research, and like all the challenges, like doing the publications, doing all the review processes and all that. So do try to mention them if you have been through all those processes. So they help a lot.
And
Yep.
I would like to add one thing about recommendation letters. I really like Divyendu's suggestion. He brought it out that, get recommendation from people who know you, because then they who personally know you, like who have seen you working, who have had experience with how do you handle, problems, because they can write about those experiences. And those are the stories which will sell you as an individual to a stranger who is reading your profile for the first time. right? That helps the stranger or your committee who is reading your entire docket to imagine what sort of person would you be if you are working here. So getting recommendation letters from people who know you, even if they are not from the same field, even if they are not that well known, but because they are professors at somewhere, they have some designation, they have achieved some status, their words count. And they would especially count if they have nice things to say about you, and they will only have that fodder when they have seen you working, right? So it's really important to you figure out such people, and usually you need three. Some universities ask for even four or five, that's fine, but you should have three really strong recommendation letters with you.
Yeah, I can say from my experience, recommendation letters are important because I actually did not focus that much on those. Whether I mean I should have. So I mean I took the I mean I'm on the brunt part of the equation wherein later I realized this is I did such a big mistake not engaging so much either with the professors or in any aspect to at least get recommendation letters with the people who really know me. So I can definitely vouch for that. But Harsh, I think we have you back on. You definitely had some context around research papers and sort of highlighted you in the past conversation as well. So handing the
Sure.
mic to you.
Yeah, so a lot of things are already covered by my friends here. I would like to just one thing on this, that the grade thing, it is important. As Vishwas said, I didn't take it seriously, unfortunately. And for the first 2 years, my grades were not that good. And I had to get my stuff together. So I liked civil. I liked what I was doing. I liked engineering. That's why I sat for the exams. And I had to do something about it. So I saw it like this: civil requires a lot of field work. It's a very hands-on job as compared to the other fields, as like consulting or the IT or like whatever, most of the jobs. So you have to go out a lot. My job consists of going 70 to 60% outside, 30% inside, inside the office. So I contacted my professor in my department, Dhamvi sir, and sort of mentioned, and started doing a project under him. And then as and when I continued doing my project, I was also taking care of my grades too, so that it cumulatively increased. And so as the application time came, the grades which are like which they're in the range it should be for a good college, it was not. But because I had started earlier, like at the end of the second year, to take care of it, my research profile was very good. And as these guys already said, that the in US universities, yes, they take your like grades do take a part, but they take a holistic look at the whole profile. They look at the research papers, they look at your recommendation letters, they do look at your GRE TOEFL scores. So if you guys like to whoever are on the same boat as me, they are like not doing had good grades at the end of second year, they are like, oh wow, I have to do something. Well, don't worry, like focus on the other parts as hard as you can, like. And I assure you that so yeah, regarding that, Saurav mentioned the mail, the getting the replies from the professors. So as I had known that, okay, I have to get more experience, more knowledge in this, and where's the best knowledge I can gain from this field? It's USA. USA has like one of the best payments all over the world, and best tech also for that. So I contacted like 3 to 4 professors of my choice. I provided them a short description of what I do and what I'm interested in, and what I can offer when if I pursue MS in under you as a thesis. So I got positive replies, and I'm not going to lie, I got rejected because of my CPI, because as one of the panelists said, that yes, there is a filter for CPI, and okay, it is what it is. Well, and but I really the thing which got me into Purdue, which is like in top 3 for payments, is my research profile. I had contacted him personally. I had a chat with him over Skype while I was doing my bachelor's, and he said, "Well, yeah, you should go for it, and we will take a look at your case strongly." And yeah, I was selected for that. So like consolidating everything, I would just give my 2 cents to this, that if your grade thing is not that good, don't worry about it. You can complement it with the other things very positively, and you will not even feel an effect, not much effect of grades like in that application.
So what about if, I'm not research driven or research motivated. I just want to do a master's coursework type of a sort of degree, and then because my objective is just to get a job in the US. I mean, I fit into that spectrum as well. Although I started off doing a little bit research. I don't know, Harsh, Bora, if I wanted to throw this on your court first, if you have some context on that.
I mean, in my case, I actually had decided I want to do masters or higher studies at early stage. So if you are decided at early stage, you can take certain steps like doing an internship. I got an opportunity to work here in US and do an internship, and that actually paved way to get MS in US very easily, because once doing internship here, doing a research internship under a professor gets you the experience that you need. And then, just like everyone said, LORs are important. I asked the same professor to give me LOR, and definitely, if an LOR is coming from a professor in US from a good university, in my case, it was from Purdue, I was able to get admits in pretty much most of the colleges I applied, along with other LORs which I got from professors at IIT. I mean, honestly, coming back to Tushar question, like doing thesis or just doing master's coursework, I think it comes back, if you have got some work experience, it's much easier for you to do a non-thesis based job, which just needs, courses to be done. But if you want to do research, you need to have a similar background. So it completely depends on your background. How do you want to go ahead with it? So if you have already done a job, then it's easier for you to get a master's in which you don't have to do thesis or research and just do courses and get away with it. And I have a lot of friends who have done that and came through that route. And one more thing I want to add, if you want to pursue PhD and you don't think your profile is very good at the moment, what you can do is you can apply for masters. And within the first year when you're here, you can talk to professors and you can always convert into PhD directly and without wasting the time, because a lot of universities allow that. And you can actually use whatever time or courses you spend in masters towards your PhD program. And this is very often that happens if you are keen in research and you work under a professor. So that's something, if you're considering for PhD and you don't have the profile which you need to get a PhD admission, just go ahead and apply for masters. And then once you're here, you can reach out to the professors and then you can convert to PhD very easily.
I think in most of the cases, this is the route that people take, right? Like even if you apply for a PhD, it's not very typical to get a PhD right off the bat, right? After you graduate. Most of the times you do get a master's admit, you go there, you work with your professor, and then ultimately you convert to a PhD, right?
I just want to make sure people are aware about it.
No, exactly.
Because I wasn't aware about this when I was applying.
Yeah.
I was just applying for masters. I wasn't even thinking about PhD, because a lot of times the mindset is like you cannot apply for PhD directly. A very few set of universities allow you to apply directly to PhD once you've done a bachelor's. So I just want to make everyone aware that even if you're pursuing masters, you can always convert that into PhD without wasting a year or two of your master's degree.
Yeah.
So talking about MS, and I think this is another recurring question that we got from different people. Can we apply for a master's program in a field different than our bachelor's program?
Definitely.
Or if we can, like how do we sort of bridge the gap between your field A and field B, and what can we do to basically increase our probability of acceptance?
I think Shreyas is here.
I can take that.
Yeah.
So there are three options here. There are three types. One is the two fields that you are applying. Let's say the field that you have done your bachelor's in is very similar to what you're applying. An example in this case will be you have done your bachelor's in mechanical engineering and you are applying to aerospace engineering. So since those fields are very similar, you don't really have to do a lot of efforts. Most of the courses from your bachelor's will be very similar. And in that case, you don't have to do anything. You just have to convince why do you want to do a master's or PhD in aerospace in your SOP. Now, the second case is you are applying for master's in a pure science program, which still has some link to your bachelor's. So, for example, you have done your bachelor's in mechanical engineering and you're applying for a master's or PhD in mathematics or physics, which are like pure science fields. I've seen some of my friends doing that. In that case, again, it is relatively harder than the first case, but still easier than the third case that I'm going to tell you. So in this case, what you can do is in your bachelor's program, try to do a couple of courses from, in this case, physics department, and show that you do have an active interest in that particular department. And now going on to the third case, in which the course that you are applying to is very different than what you have done in your bachelor's. So for example, you have done your bachelor's in mechanical engineering and you are applying to computer science engineering, which is typically what most of the people do these days. In this case, what you need to do is during your bachelor's, to make your application stronger, you need to do again 3 things. First, try to do computer science courses. It could be online courses on Coursera, or it could be courses within your university. Second, try to do projects. For example, if you are interested in machine learning, do like small machine learning projects. And third, try to do a research project with one of the professors at your university. So using these 3 things, you can make your application stronger in whatever different field that you are applying to. And then you can include that in your SOP and make your application a lot stronger. Keeping that in mind, you were...
No, please continue. I thought you were done.
No, I was saying, keeping that in mind, there are also certain courses which encourage people coming from different departments. For example, Masters in Information Systems, called as MIS. For those courses, you need not follow the things that I just mentioned for option 3. So also go through what are the requirements for those courses, and then you can plan your path accordingly.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that. I wanted to add that so there are 2 kinds of masters, which are like one, which are very field specific and they want you to have similar experience background for the application. Most of the engineering courses or programs are like that. But then there are some, programs which are sort of your background agnostic. So they include, for example, operational research, IOE, industrial research, industrial operations, that sort of stuff, or some programs into design, masters in design, or masters in informatics, as Shreyas mentioned, or masters in, say, just simple data science. Or some computation stuff. And then all these things, they are sort of professional, programs wherein what the university is looking for people from different backgrounds, and where, frankly speaking, university is looking to make some easy money by offering these programs. So admission criteria is not that strict. They don't want you to have, really strong background in the same field. They would rather have you come and learn these things through the courses here. So if you are not really into any of the engineering, you just want experience of higher education, some master's degree, and then you want to work in the US, doing masters in these sort of background agnostic programs might be a good idea for you, and you might not need as strong of credentials as you might need in some other programs to get into them.
No, thank you. That was a great insight. Sorry, Shreyas, you had something else?
No, I was going to just add one more point. So what Vishwas pointed out was great. Just one more point to add on to that is, especially if you are planning to do masters not in your field, what helps is if you do a job back in India for a year or 2, in the field that you want to go into will help you a lot. For example, you did your you did your bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then you did a job in India, let's say at a startup in computer science engineering, and then you're applying here for master's in computer science engineering. That will help a lot, and it will also help you with the job experience to get a job here in the US. So that is it. Tushar, you can carry on.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, Tejas, I think you had this question for masters in data science. Should I wait for a year and get some work experience in online courses? I think that definitely answers your question. And Shreyas, I must say your answers are pretty meaty, so thank you for breaking that down. in
Yeah,
different situations.
one thing, Tushar, just to add to what Shreya said about doing courses. I mean, a lot of universities probably have a program called minors. So if you do a certain set of courses in your university in a different engineering field, you can get a minor's degree. I think that's much more valuable than just doing a couple of courses. If you can target and get a minor's degree, that will help and support your application a lot. And a lot of people, I think, in IITs, they generally do like minors in computer science, and it just requires you to do like 4 courses or something like that, and that definitely highlights your profile.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. If you are, in your first or second year, you can definitely do that. I did that as well. My minors was in management, so that definitely helped adding value to my profile. Janil in the chat was asking Harsh Patel CGPA. Janil never asked a woman's age, student's percentage, but I think Saurabh already.
No, I already reviewed. I already reviewed.
But okay,
That's
never
the
mind.
point. That's the point I was making. It doesn't matter now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, but definitely, as Harsh had said, it doesn't really matter. It's more about how well-rounded you can build your profile and convince the other person to basically select you. Yeah, we have a couple more questions in the chat. I'll quickly sort of go one by one, try to get answers or perspective as quickly as we can on those. I did listen that research background and influential recommendations add value, but I don't have any. So tell me whether my decision has any chances to take me somewhere in the US.
I can take that.
Specific to PhD or masters?
I mean, let's just have both perspectives. I think it doesn't. Siva, if you're still in the chat, if you can specify, but if we can.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Vinayak, please go ahead.
So like I had this chat with my professor as to why people are not selected like from India in the brain and cognitive sciences department at MIT. So like no Indian undergrad that I know of has ever been selected in this PhD program. And they said the reason is that although they apply, we don't know any of the recommenders. They usually apply straight out of undergrad. We don't know whether they even know what research is. Like we know they can do it if they want to do it. We don't even know whether they know they want to do it. Like how do we know that they understand that they're signing up for this will lead to certain future directions, and like they are making this decision in all knowledge about like the future. So what they suggested me to tell like Indian peers is to like gather some research experience if they don't have it. So like it does not matter whether there's this common I think phenomena all across Asia in general, that like we think of our life in terms of years, that oh, my 1 year will get wasted, my 6 months will get wasted. Oh, if I just take a research position somewhere in some lab, like IISc is a wonderful research institution. IITs have also started doing like wonderful research now. Things were not the same, say in the early 2000s or even before that, right? So like if someone does 6 months of work as a research assistant in some university, first of all, you'll get to know really good people in your field. Second of all, you'll actually know whether you want to do a PhD or an MS or not, like the research-based MS or not. And you'll get recommendations which will hold some weight, rather than saying, oh, this person took my course and this person had a AA in my course, this person scored A in my course. Those recommendations might speak for your sincerity as a master's student, prospective master's student, but for a PhD, they can literally be like thrown away, because having a A in a course is not what they're looking for when they're looking at a PhD application. They're trying to assess you as a researcher, as a person who can have original ideas, break big tasks into small tasks, approach each of those small tasks. So like, and they want to know this from a person they might believe in. Like, don't get a don't think that, okay, I don't want to waste 6 months, or I don't want to waste a year, so I'll rather go with a recommendation from like the PhD student that guided me uh, during undergrad, or like an ETA that I had. I know they will write good things about me, so even if they're not credible, let them just say that like this person was the best student I ever had as a TA. But like, how much weight does that hold, right? So I think for this question specifically, people should consider working at universities for smaller time periods, and like it makes a huge lot of difference in the kind of PhD programs or master's programs they would be able to get in, which their research advisors would then recommend them into, like through the back door. Like anything can happen in the US if you have the right recommendation. So I guess people should be open-minded regarding like research positions.
So I think that was a great insight about like people don't even know what they really want to do perspective as well. Vora, I just saw you unmute. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, just to add, if you're concerned that you don't have a research background and you don't have the recommendations, one thing you can do is always have your work experience speak for you, and that comes very handy if you're applying for non-thesis based masters. And then again, the route is same. Once you're here, you can always convert into thesis and then again then to PhD.
So that's
I
a
have
great.
friends who have done that.
Sorry.
Like they had 3 years or 4 years experience, no research background before that, and they were able to get a master's admit in good universities.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a great point. But I had a very interesting and maybe a difficult question, so I'll throw it out there. Faizan had asked, I'm planning to do MS in engineering management, but due to government exam preparations in India, he spent 2 years. So now he's in that situation where he spent 2 years and not really adding value to his quote unquote profile, having no work experience. Now, what can be the steps that he can follow in order to build like a resume for the job market here in the US? He's done BTech in computer science for reference. I mean, I think the bigger question is, what if you have gap on your resume?
Okay, I understand. But is he looking for a direct job in the US?
No. Building a master's profile, but focus more
Building a
so
master's
towards
profile, I
getting a
see.
job in the US.
I mean, it's all about how you sell yourself, man. That's what I'll say. I would never. I don't know why people take it, take gap as a bad thing. I would rather like if you can sell it, I would rather sell it as that those were the 2 years that you spent on self exploration, and people love that sort of stuff. If you have clarity what you want to do, why you want to do that, or if you can just sell it in a way which is more meaningful than just saying, oh, I was preparing for something and that didn't work out. It's fine. I mean, sharing that, but you just need to put it out in a good light, right? That 2 years you decided to do something, you worked really hard for it. Okay, even if it didn't work out, it doesn't mean that you lost your 2 years or you wasted your 2 years. You must have learned something during that time about yourself, about other things. You just need to communicate that. The same thing, like in my sort of in my experience, I wouldn't call it a gap year, because I was working towards something which was useful for me, right? But on paper it looks as if I did something really different from what I was doing earlier. So but for me, I knew that I had to, why I was doing it, what I gained out of it, and those were the things that I shared with my committee in terms of my SOP, that why from consulting I moved on to this research position, and now why I want to go forward. So that 1 year really gave me a lot of things, and that's what I communicated essentially. So you need to sell that story, that why did you do that, and how was it good for you, or even if the result was not that encouraging or positive, still you can say that that was your life experience, and that through that life experience you now have made a decision to go forward and pursue higher studies.
Yeah, and just adding on to what Vishwas is saying, because of the corona, I think the whole humanity is taking a gap right now. So you have even a better chance to justify your like whatever gap you are saying. Like you can say like because of the social pandemic, or you were preparing and you were like there's a lot of things going on like all over the world. So you should not worry about the gap thing. If you can justify and sell yourself, like it will not affect your application that much.
I mean, but because of COVID, oh, sorry, yeah, I'm unmuted. So because of COVID, Harsh, people also had a different issue, and a couple of those had basically asked questions along those lines. And I see Devajyoti Nandi also joining us. What's up, man? So a lot of people who applied in 2020 or fall 2020 didn't get it because of, or got deferred because of obviously not be able to attend during that time. But now, because of that, I don't know what the statistics are. People have said 50, 60, 70% people sort of got deferred themselves to fall 21, or let's talk fall 21. But now with that massive chunk already taking that place for 2021, it became very difficult for people to get accepted at this time. Like, will this keep on going? Does anybody have context around the admission process, or how does
So
this
see,
deferment
as,
chaos sort of settle down?
yeah, as an individual, there is only so much that you can do, right? You can't control what universities are doing at their end, and you don't ever know what the actual statistics are. So it's all about increasing your own probability of getting selected. And how you can do that is, if you think that per university you only have so much chance, you can one thing to do is you apply to many. But it's a financial constraint, right? Applications are expensive. I don't know why. I mean, they're stupid, but they are really expensive. $150, $175. I've even seen $200+
Yep.
for some universities, which is really crazy. And then added cost of sending GRE and your documents. I don't know if they still have the physical document. If they make you to send physical documents, why can't you just upload that? Any which ways, it's if you have financial resources to do that, it's a good option to apply to many if you want to increase your chance, especially in COVID times. But if you don't have that financial option, then you need to be strategic about applying. And how can you be strategic is, one thing, maybe reach out to some professor, have some rapport build with that, see if that professor is willing to hire you, maybe as a PhD or as MS. That's one thing to do. Other thing, look for universities that have something special set up for international students. That they may be some departments where they have diversity quotas for international students, that they have to take as many international students it's just a guideline that they do that. Or other way to be strategic about that is, if you know people in those universities, and if you know that, say, in a group some PhD is opening up, you can reach out to those people, like your fellow students, and if they can tell you if there are openings in their group, you can interview with the professor and then go back to the first option that I said. So those are the two things that I would say other people please contact.
No, definitely great insight. I mean, things beyond our control are beyond our control. So, like, why do we have to constantly be bothered down by that? Yeah, Vishwas is exactly right. You just need to keep on increasing your probability of success. But you touched up upon a little bit on cost. I think that's a great segue to just all-round application process, funding, scholarships. A lot of the questions, I'd say, actually, most of the questions that we received were along those lines. For PhD students or master students, both combined, how can people secure funding? What are the ways that they can get, fellowships, scholarships? Can people start throwing some light on that topic?
So yeah, let me take that one, right? So at my college at UC Davis, right? So there were a lot of funding opportunities in terms of TAships, right? So master students and even PhD students, right? They, even when, like, I knew people who came to UC Davis, right, and they did not have any funding, and then they applied, to this TAship program, and that waived off their tuition, right? So TAship is definitely one option. Second option is being a graduate researcher. Now that uh, would help if you could, contact the professors beforehand, or once you reach to your college, right? You can start, approaching your professors whom you like, and they're, in my opinion, I've seen like professors being very open, to talk to you once you are there in person, right? So these two are the most basic ways to get funding. Another way that I have seen is securing like state government funding here in India and using that to do your masters. So I had a friend who was in IIT Bombay, uh, a batch senior to me. She scored funding from Maharashtra government, and that's what she used to do her masters at UC Davis. So I think, yeah, these three ways are definitely ones that you should explore. Uh, before, if you're thinking about how to secure funding. Mhm.
Quick add on to that, has anyone gone through like what are different types of funding and what do you need to do? Like what is your expectations like once you receive that funding, expectation from you? I think that will be also helpful.
That, Shreyas. Yeah, if you can categorize, since there are different kinds of fundings available out here, there are many, and it's good to, if you can categorize them and share.
Sure. So, like building on to what Saurabh just mentioned, there are three types of funding. The first one is fellowship. So fellowship, if you get a fellowship, generally the university or department gives you, and this is a bit different than what Saurabh mentioned about getting the funding from the Indian government. So it will be mentioned in your admit letter. It is very competitive, and what it generally entails is your tuition fee will be waived off, and you will get a stipend every month, which will take care of your monthly expenses. So, and you're not expected to do anything. You just have to make sure that you do not fail during the courses, and essentially you're completing your master's or a PhD on the right path. Again, fellowship is very competitive. It is generally given to like 3 or 4 people within a batch for a department, and you need to have a very strong profile for that. The second type of funding is research assistantship, which Saurabh just mentioned. In research assistantship, again, your tuition fee is waived off and you get a monthly stipend. In this research assistantship, your responsibility is to work with a professor on a research problem with them. And technically, this entails working with them for over like a minimum of 20 hours a week. Again, that is not really followed. People do work for like more than like up to 40 hours a week, but that is a different story. And research assistantship is generally given by professors who are essentially doing PhD in their lab. Master's students do get research assistantship as well, but then they are not preferred. PhD students have to conduct labs for undergraduates in that university, and teaching assistantships can take a lot of work from your everyday course schedule. Again, you are expected to work for 20 hours a week, and you can either grade papers during that time, or you can work on the lab to essentially teach students on like how do various lab projects work. Of these three funding opportunities, teaching assistantship, there is no criteria. Like if you have a bachelor's, if you are a master's student, you can still get a teaching assistantship, it all depends on the rules of the university. But I do know that some universities, for example, and I may be wrong, when I was applying, Ohio State University, they did not give any like TAs or RAs to master student. They only give it to PhD students. So you need to look into those things before you apply to universities. Make sure that which universities are giving these funding opportunities.
So
those are the sorry.
Go ahead, Vishwas.
Those are the all the fundings which are available in the university. But now suppose those, and especially TA-ship, RA-ship, you will only get once you get into the university. But sitting in India, before applying for your visa, you need to show them proofs for your funding. And now there are a bunch of different ways in which you can do it. If you have the personal resources to show that, well and good. If not, most people go for loans, education loans, that you have secured this funding, you will be able to fund yourself for 2 years, 4 years, whatever is your duration. But in that loan, in that loan category, I want to add one thing. There are many opportunities available in India where you get interest-free loan for education. Those are basically run by some NGOs, some organizations for which support you to go for higher studies abroad. So the idea is that it's like, you just, once you finish your program, you start earning, you just pay the principal. You don't have to pay interest, which is a huge saving, because you might incur somewhere around 50-60 lakh rupees on your masters, right? If you don't have any funding, then saving 10% of that annually, which is typically the interest rate which banks charge for educational loans, right, can be a huge thing. Like every year you can save 5 lakh rupees just because of that. So there are many such loans which are available within India. You should also look for them. And once you secure them, it's not necessary that you have to use that loan money, right? It's just for the visa purposes. After that, you come to university, look for all these scholarships, fellowships, all the funding opportunities, and they do exist. You can easily convert them. Like my previous roommate, he was a master's student. He got TA-ship for 2 semesters consecutively, and which was, really great for him, because he essentially got his master's for free in that sense. So they do exist, and it's not like master students don't get that. So yeah, that I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I just say the interest rate point really hit home for me, because I took a private uncollateralized loan, and the interest rate was more than 10%. So it definitely hurts a lot. And if you're able to achieve, or at least secure, some sort of those other funding opportunities that Vishwas said. Vinayak, I don't know if you know the names. I think if you can name drop a few, or either just put them in the chat for people to at least start getting into, or at least explore that side of the world if they had no context around. Or if you want to share them right now, go ahead.
I think, Tushar, one thing that I think you should mention here is, let's say if you don't have, if you don't secure any funding, right, then you need to understand the ROI, right, on your masters, right? So I've seen people in tier 2 colleges, but in the US areas that are highly, a place where it's very accessible for people, to get hired. Like for example, in California, if you are around the Silicon Valley, right, a lot of people get hired then and there, right? Maybe in New York, and depending on your field, right, wherever you are. But once you are planning for your masters, I think, at least I did not think about it, right? So looking at the job opportunities where your college is going to be, I think that is another factor that you should think about, because that is ultimately going to tell you how long it would take to cover your loans, right?
Yeah, I can definitely share that perspective. This is, I think, a major part of my story. And I think Vinayak is basically answering that question in the chat. So Siva and I think Gavde sir and a few others had questions on that. So thanks, Vinayak, for taking that in the chat itself. By the way, if you're just joining, we are doing this COVID fundraiser stream, basically answering your questions around, if you're pursuing, or at least aspiring to pursue your career and life in the US. We are all a bunch of IIT Bombay students, graduates, sorry now, and we moved to the US. Either we did MS, PhD, and now are basically living in the US. So we can share a lot of perspective on that for you. So shoot your shot, ask all of the questions as you can, either in the chat, or if you can't do that, scroll down. There's a WhatsApp group link. Go into that group, and I'm taking questions from there as well. And the entire essence of this stream is basically to raise money towards whatever's happening in India with COVID. So we have links in the description about different charities. Just pick any of that and go ahead and please donate if you can. Now, going back to the question, or at least my perspective, I was initially thinking, from a money point of view as well, because I was not able to secure sort of any sort of an opportunity on funding anywhere, as in neither through those programs that are in India, nor through an RA or a TA opportunity at my master's program. But I realized I'm thinking in very micro perspective. Like, I'm only thinking in like 1 or 2 year, or at least 3 year horizon. I need to think on a bigger scale. Would I be able to sort of break even or even break through my current situation, or at least like the status quo that I would have had if I was in India, versus if I moved to the US, I invest basically, and not just, that's not expense, that's basically an investment. And then you're making on top of that investment based upon the salaries that are paid here. In the longer run, would that be more value add, more beneficial to my current or my career pursuit? I did fortunately got an assistantship for the first semester. So my program at Georgia Tech was for 3 semesters, 18-month program, and then for the first fall 2017 semester, I did get an assistantship or a research assistantship with a professor, but that was after I came to Georgia Tech. So that's I got super lucky, guys. It's not a normalcy that happens. I was just constantly pestering my professors to give me some opportunity, and fortunately something opened up. But I realized I don't want to do research. I'll say I hated it. I'm not the research guy, or at least I thought I liked it until I realized, oh no, this is not for me. So knowing that, and then I had to take a call to whether keep on doing something that I don't like, or just forget about it, let me pay that entire sum of money to the university, but I'll make it back in the longer run, and at least be happy exploring the things that I want to do. So I had to take that call, and I did that. I left my assistantship. I went ahead and did my entire master's, or remaining part of the master's program, paying that more than 10% interest private loan that I had got from India. So terrible financial advice from a short-term perspective, but a great career advice from a longer-term perspective. That's the ROI principle that Saurav was saying. That's what I was thinking when I was in that situation of what should I do. I understand there's a lot of again, my situation can be completely different from anybody here in the chat or anyone who's watching this. So obviously you have to think on your terms as well. But I'll hand it off to Dave. I think he has something to add on this as well.
Yep, I would definitely like to add something to the discussion. So I think we have talked about the university funding, and we also talked about like the loan opportunities of how to sort of support that in your I-20. So like few more things which I also like looked or searched for when I was applying was some of the scholarship opportunities which are available. So like Tushar really pointed out, like the ROI perspective, and it sort of boils down to that okay, what kind of scholarship opportunities can I apply? Some universities do provide scholarship based on your past experience. Some universities don't. So that's it. Like, so now you can compare. But then it depends also on the location of the college. For example, I applied in Pittsburgh and New York, and like I chose New York. I chose Pittsburgh to study because from a living expenses point of view, New York is definitely much more expensive. Even you can maintain a sort of modest lifestyle. So I think like Tushar can agree, like Georgia would again be similar expensive as Pittsburgh was. So making those decisions actively, and also there are like master's program which are 1 year, like those interdisciplinary programs, versus 1.5 or 2 years. So in a 1 year program, you get very little chance of doing a internship in the middle of your program. You need to join right into the job, right? But that internship actually helps you in two ways. It can help you in your sort of building a profile for your upcoming job opportunities or interviews. It can also help you to sort of pay off your loan a little earlier, because if you're doing the internship and you're still staying in a city like Pittsburgh or Georgia, which is not that expensive to live in, you can make a lot of savings once you come back to university, and you can pay off your loan quickly. So that's what I actually did. So, and there are several other scholarship opportunities. For example, there are Khan scholarship, and there are some other state-sponsored scholarship like YES scholarships. Feel free to sort of look at those. I'll also share some of the links later on. But these opportunities, it will take a lot of effort to sort of apply. They are like interviews and resumes that they review, but I think it's definitely worth it. I received a scholarship from the university itself, and they mandate that you can only get one scholarship for a whole program. So it's definitely viable to sort of apply to all of those and find out which one gives you the best scholarship amount. So these are some additional venues of like how to maximize your return on the investment that you're making in your master's program, managing your expenses, costs once you're in US, and also finding out as many avenues as you can to sort of support your funding beyond the traditional ways of university funding, and how to sort of minimize the costs associated with your loan.
Yeah, those were great points. Harsh, Bora, I think you have something to add there.
Yeah, I just want to give an observation that I made, like when I was doing masters at Purdue. So a lot of people who don't have funding at the beginning, what they end up doing is they come and they reach out to professors. A lot of professors might not be willing to give funding right away. So what they do is they let the student work under them for a semester. And if you work really good for that semester, next semester onwards, they start funding you. And I think that's much common, and that's very practical from a professor's point of view as well. Like they want to observe you because they don't know you. So make sure that, you know, when you're there right in the first semester, reach out to the professors and try to get a position under them, even if they're not funding you, because that will make sure that, you know, upcoming semester you start getting funding. And a lot of friends who were there in my master's program were able to do that. Like the first semester they were unfunded, but all the subsequent semesters they got funding. So
yeah, that's a great observation. I've seen a whole lot, and in fact I was in that situation where the couple of professors who I was speaking to said the same thing to me, like, we want to see how you work before even, you know, investing money in you or giving you any sort of a funding or assistantship. Shreyas?
Yep. So on funding, like basically just building on like what many of you have spoken, I just wanted to quickly highlight one thing, that if there are some students who are planning to come to the US for masters, and then quickly go back to India after, just one thing to keep in mind, if you do have a financial constraint, and this might not be an opinion that will be liked by many people, like if you are coming here for masters, and let's say if you're going back to India right after your masters, then your masters here will hold the same value as you have done masters in, let's say, IITs or any other NITs. So doing a master's in the US will not give you a better job back in India if you're directly going after masters. So keep that in mind if you are thinking, like I'm telling you this in terms of funding. So if that is your goal, you will be better off doing a master's back in India. Second, if you want to go back to India in, let's say, some time frame, and you're not sure what is the time frame required, as Tushar pointed out, when you're calculating the ROI, you will need at least 2 to 3 years to pay back your masters after you get a job. And that is again on an average. So let's say if you have had a non-funded masters, Then after that non-funded masters, on an average, you will have to spend for 2 or 3 years more to pay back the loan that you had taken for masters. And then after that mark, you will actually start saving and actually start earning. So keep those timeframes in mind. So that will also help you in planning what you really want to do in the long term.
Yeah.
And
No, please continue. Sorry,
I was going to
interrupting.
say, and adding on to that, on if this will help you if you go back to India, this will certainly help you if you go back to India if you have job experience in the US. So for people who are planning to go back in the long term, yes, the experience will help you, but you need to have a job experience. The only education in the US will not help.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point of view. Still continuing the discussion around ROI, the return on investment. Dibyendu, I know a lot of people who come to the US doing their masters in CS or data science or AI ML, and we received a lot of questions on that front as well. So throwing the ball on your court again, like, do usually they get masters, or what's the perspective there, knowing that potentially they may receive a high paying job? So let's just pay the entire 4.5 year or 2 year course, and then let's just go ahead and hope for the best and we get like a job at Facebook's or Google's of the world. Is that how people are thinking?
I think specifically in CS, there are a lot of people who like people who are going for masters, like they are kind of they want to go for PhD, but they don't know yet. If I am suitable, like if I am that much interested in doing research, like there are a lot of people like me who just want to do like explore a bit on the research area and then maybe get a job in research as well. So I think a lot of people in CS are like that.